All right, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome everyone to today's webinar on illuminating Microsoft 365. Today we're going to be exploring the possibilities of OneDrive for Business, not to be confused with our personal OneDrive, but our OneDrive that we use for our work stuff. If you've never been with us before, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the party. My name is Joy Apple. I work at Pate Group, and I'm a modern workplace strategist, which means I work with companies and help them figure out how to get from point A to point B. So file shares, Google Drives, or older versions of SharePoint, and into Microsoft 365 and all of the various apps that come along with it, including OneDrive for Business. I have with me, as always, Richard Calderon. He's my work twin at Pate Group. Richard, how are you today?
That's right, doing well, Joy. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to today's webinar. You know, it seems like this might have been a topic that we could have covered early on, but you know, we wanted to have a little bit of suspense and kind of keep you anticipating. But yeah, doing well, having a great day so far. As Joy mentioned, we're twins here at Pate, and that we both have the same role and responsibilities. Also a lot of workplace strategists. And yeah, we just love talking about every and all things, helping organizations really just get the most out of Microsoft 365. And so that's why we've been doing a series of webinars. Our first entire series was focused around Microsoft Teams specifically. So go check those out if you haven't had a chance to see some of those. And then our latest Illuminating Microsoft 365 webinars is really just kind of, you know, the whatever types of topics for M365 seem like they would be most useful to you. And of course, we also want to hear that from you guys as well. So on that particular theme, we've got some poll questions, which is something we'd like to do in the context of our webinars, because we want to get to know you guys a little bit better. So a couple of different ways you can get to these questions. There is a link in the Q&A window for you to give that a click, and then you could just respond directly there. Also, something you can do, and these polls were built right in Microsoft Forms, by the way, which is one of the awesome services you get in Microsoft 365. But you can, when you create a form, you can also, right there built into the service is the ability to generate this QR code. And so if you want, if you're so inclined, and you have your mobile device with you, if you want to crack open the camera and point it at that QR code, then it'll prompt you to open up the web browser on your device, where you can just take the poll there on your mobile device. So we've got a few questions here. You know, the standard one always, we just want to know who's who in the zoo. And so if you'll just let us know who's in the audience today based on how you would define your role. And then we've got a few other questions here, just some things we wanted to know around your file management, how you kind of get back and forth from files today. So, you know, on a scale from 1 to 5, we were thinking, how bad would it be for your sanity, number one, but really just the continuity of your business in terms of dealing with files. If your laptop, your primary computer, whatever you use, you know, just fell into the ocean tomorrow, or fell off the back of a truck, or whatever it may be, would it be, you know, the end of the world? Would it be, oh, well, you know, I was thinking about quitting this job anyway? Or maybe I've got some of those files, they're somewhere on a network file share, I might be able to go find them. Are you one of those that maybe had just been continually running backups of some type? And you've got a number of different external hard drives. I know I used to do that many, many years ago. Or are you one of those that's already into OneDrive at the moment? So, you know, how would you phrase this last one, Joy?
How would I phrase that last one?
Yeah, ain't no thing.
No thing.
That's right. That's right. Ain't no thing. Just wanted to have Joy give her a little spin on that one. But if you got OneDrive and it ain't no thing, you know, just want to know what you guys are doing. And then in this list here, you know, we kind of try to put something that's kind of fun for questions too along the way. And so we're interested to know, when all of this quarantining stuff hopefully finally gets lifted at some point, just kind of interested to know, like, in your opinion, of these types of things that we have listed here, you know, what would be the top of your list of the things that you would like to go do? and you can use this to just rank them. So what you put up at the top of the list would be considered your top choice, all the way down to maybe your bottom choice in this case. And you know, if it were me, I certainly might just put this one here, you know, attending an awesome tech conference, something you just can't do these days. But, you know, hey, if when all this is said and done, you have the ability to go to a conference like North American Collaboration Summit in Branson, you get a chance to hear from some amazing speakers and experts, such as very own Joy Apple here on the line. And I'm going to be there too, I believe, doing some customer immersion experience delivery. But you can register for that if you'd like at that link you see there. And we're also happy to share that link with you in the Q&A as well, so you can get to that. And if you type in the coupon code JOY, you can do that in capital letters, you'll get $50 off registering for that as well. So let's go ahead and flip over and just see some responses. Just curious as to who's who and what we've got going on here. So as usual, we've got a pretty decent mix of folks here attending the webinar. So thanks for those that are responding at this moment. And so in terms of folks that are also on the line, oh, good. Looks like we've got a number of people that are already utilizing OneDrive. Some folks that, you know, run some backups. You know, if you're the one person there that said, well, you're considering a new job, let's hope that your device doesn't fall into the ocean tomorrow. And then this one you have to kind of get a good sense of sort of like, you know, based on the visual here, kind of what's going on here. But, you know, it looks like a good number of people are suggesting that, you know, maybe one of the things they'd like to do is go to a tech conference. So that's great. Fantastic. Feel free to just respond to this poll again anytime along the course of the webinar. You can just hit that link, fill in the responses, and then we'll get those afterwards. We appreciate that.
So before we move on, and please do pardon our shameless plug of the Collab Summit. We're excited to be able to get back out, meet and greet folks, but there are a lot of awesome virtual events going on right now. Go to Twitter, look for them. I know there's a virtual marathon going on. All the user groups are doing things in Teams now. So you can still do some of that fun stuff, even though it's not quite as cool if you're not actually there. It's the next best thing.
There's a huge trade-off now, obviously, right? I mean, on the one hand, nothing can replace getting a chance to physically interact and network with, you know, hundreds, if not maybe thousands of people at some of these events. You know, you just can't replace that, obviously, doing virtually. But on the flip side, the fact that, as Joy mentioned, so many of these event organizers are now just kind of switching over to doing these as virtual events. In many cases, they're just, you know, they're democratizing this so that you can all get access to this great information and content, if normally it would have been impossible for you to travel to all of them in that year. So yeah, definitely take advantage of that. It's great. It's a great way to be able to learn and obviously share what you know with others. Okay, do you want to take over on this side and jump on into some goodness, OneDrive goodness?
Oh, it's going to be lots of goodness. Okay, yes, I want to kick Richard off. I'm going to share my desktop because that's just how I roll. All right, here we go. Are we seeing my slides? Feels like maybe we're not.
Yeah, I think I'm still sharing at the moment. I'll do a stop share and then.
Let me kick you off. That's so disappointing. It's usually one of my favorite things to do. It's just
true. It's just like lowering my hand.
There it is. There it is.
There we go.
Don't tell me Teams is enforcing manners now. That's no fun. Okay. So all your files where you are. That's the point of OneDrive. It's honestly, I think it's a bit overlooked sometimes in all of the great tools and apps that Microsoft offers. But I want to share with you a personal story. And apparently I'm getting some background music from a vehicle going down the road. It wasn't planned, but I guess we'll take advantage of it. So OneDrive for Business, it gives you anywhere, any device within your organization's policies, access to your personal or individual work content. So I'm going to take you back in time and I'm going to share with you kind of a personal story. I am a recovering desktop dumper. It was a long, hard battle. And I mean, I kind of knew I had a problem, but it didn't seem like it was super critical. But I do things fast, right? I talk fast, I walk fast, I drive fast, I just, right? I'm working and I jump from thing to thing fast, okay? So I'd be working in a Word document and it's time to save it so I can go jump to the next thing super quick. What's the first thing it's going to ask you? Where do you want to save it? I don't want to slow down to think about it. So I'm just going to throw it on my desktop, right? And when the time comes later, I'll go organize that wherever it belongs. Richard, how often does later usually come?
Never. Never comes.
So you get to the point, and I would love it if you all would put in chat, support me, okay? Put in chat if you're one of the people you've ever had your desktop so full of icons, you have no more room. So you grab them all and you shove them in a folder and you call it desktop 1. I know I'm preaching to some people out there, okay? I know I am. And so we mentioned hard drives. There's a Post-it note on this one. I don't know if you can see it because the background thing gets a little weird. This is my Seagate Backup Plus portable hard drive. I don't even know when I bought it, right? I don't even know the last time I plugged it in. But I do remember the last time I plugged it in, I had a folder called Desktop 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not proud.
I used to do desktop backup with a date. And
Ooh,
I would, yet again, I would, here's the next desktop backup with a date. And so
very thoughtful.
yeah.
That's
I
very
also, I
nice.
had a problem as well. So
I mean, see, I'm glad I'm not in this alone.
yeah.
What got me to change that is I had a laptop. I will not speak to the make or model, but it was about a year old. It would decide while I was working just to shut down. Sometimes it would boot back up. Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would hold a charge. Sometimes it wouldn't. And I was like, oh crap, I got to be able to get to my stuff. So fine, I'll practice what I preach, right? I got stuff, I organized it generally in OneDrive, and then I booted up an old Fujitsu Lifebook that's still probably, yeah, it's back in the corner behind me. It runs pretty well, but the fan never turns off. But I needed to be able to get to it when my work laptop wouldn't work. And then I went to this guy and I downloaded the mobile app, and suddenly I had the ability to get to anything I needed to, regardless of if my primary machine was up or not. Once you have that, you can't go back, right? You just can't. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of slides just to talk about, the features and the functionality, and then I'm going to shut the slides down till the end, and we're going to actually jump into OneDrive. So OneDrive for one person. I use my OneDrive for my work stuff. Maybe Stacy wants me to start working on some blurbs for some future webinars, and she's tired of me just throwing it in chat. So I could come to OneDrive, start a document, start organizing it. Oh, heaven forbid we have a history to go back to of this stuff, Stacy. And then I could share that with her. I would have access to it on my laptop, on my mobile device, on my iPad, or I don't have an iPad. What do I have? I have a Surface Go, right? Anywhere I've got the internet, I can get to my content. Let's advance the slides. So this is just a quick screenshot of my actual paid group OneDrive. I can see here the names of my documents, when I created them. And over on the far right, I can see if I've shared one of these or if it's private. I control that because it's my OneDrive, my content. Now that said, when it's time to share with the group, I share it with Stacy, we look at it, it's great. We're ready to share it with the rest of this marketing team. At that point, it's time to move to the team side of the storage world, right? Teams, which we all know is backed up by SharePoint. I start in OneDrive. When it's time to share with my team, I move it out to that appropriate location, right? But what you can tell from the screen is I have options. When I go to share a link, I can choose, do I want anyone with this link to be able to access it? Anyone means anyone. I could forward it to Richard, anyone, it's anonymous. He can go, this is amazing. I'm going to send it to my cousin in San Antonio. And his cousin in San Antonio could click the link and open it. So we have to be very careful and cautious. Do we trust your cousin in San Antonio, Richard?
No, not typically.
No. So, right, we really have to think about that content before we share with anyone. The default, and I can tell it's the default because there's a little check mark here on my screen next to people in Pay Group with the link. That means if I forward it to Richard, he can't send it to his cousin in San Antonio because he's not part of Pay Group, but he could send it to Stacy or Mark Rackley if we decided we were going to trust Mark. People with existing access, it means the folks that are already here and they already have access to it. Specific people, I have shot myself in the foot with this before. I put in the name of the people or person, Richard, Stacy, maybe even Richard's cousin in San Antonio. I put them in there, and those are the only people that can access it. I've actually shared a document that way, and then I don't know, I was already in email and I thought, oh, it's right here in my sent items. I'll go just click the link and get to it. No, because I didn't send it with me. So I, as the owner of that document, couldn't even use that specific people link, which I think is hilarious. It shows that security works. Sneak peek into sharing. We're going to actually play with some sharing here in just a moment. One important thing to know about OneDrive is I can utilize it as my desktop. Actually, in Windows 10, you can set it up to back up the desktop, that C drive that's on the computer. It's fantastic. It takes the guesswork and the decisions that our users need to make about some of this stuff. It just makes it happen. It makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Joy, just a quick question that came in from Matthew Carter on that was basically saying that his users are confused by the wedge of whether it's going to see user's username OneDrive desktop folder versus see user's username / desktop. And he just tells people not to use it only as they just don't get it. So he's wanting to know any suggestions on that.
I honestly, I don't know if I should admit this. I haven't really thought about it, just because the folder location really isn't something I look at a whole lot.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, and it's also possible I might not understand the question exactly, but yeah, and Joy, I'm sure you probably can show some of that later here, but when you turn on that ability to effectively back up those important folders on your Windows device, that is desktop and pictures and why I'm drawing a blank at the other one at the moment. It is
documents.
Thank you. Gosh, that's the obvious one. So when you have that ability to do that, then which you can either let your users do that on their own, or you could do that via group policy. Yeah, it's pretty seamless to them at that point. So they don't really even have to think about it anymore. That it's basically just the exact same files sitting on their desktop, except now they're getting put into that special OneDrive folder that's now doing all the syncing up into the cloud. So if you had some additional info on that question there, Matthew, maybe just drop it back into Q&A. We can try to help you some more. But yeah, other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward for users who they don't even really need to know any different.
Nope, they just do what they've always been doing, and OneDrive takes care of it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
If your organization's not really ready to do that, I'll show you the cheat way. Because I'm all about cheating if it's easy, right? Not really, kinda, when it comes to SharePoint and OneDrive. So one of the great features too about the content being accessible, I can sync OneDrive, and I'm going to show you how to do this, down to my desktop. And that's what I do. That's how I interact and work with my files on my machine. I can choose if I want that document to physically live on my laptop, or if I want it to just be a link I click and I sync it and it actually lives in the Microsoft cloud. My good use case for this is when, pre-COVID-19 and post quarantine and all that jazz, I travel a lot. I'm on flights a few or more times a month. And I'm sorry, if there's anyone from Delta, I appreciate you so much. You're my favorite airline, but I really don't like paying you for Wi-Fi. So I grab any documents I know I'm going to work on my laptop. And I do exactly this. Always keep on this device. And I don't need the internet anymore. I can work on it, save my changes. And then the next time I hit internet or I connect to Wi-Fi, it'll sync back up to the cloud to reconcile that. So all my changes then push to my mobile device or the web or wherever I'm coming from. So let's actually do some of this fun stuff. I have more slides, but I get bored in slides. So I'm on one of my favorite pages on the World Wide Web ever, and that is office.com. If you have never gone to office.com, I mean, I don't want to say do it now because we're kind of doing this together right now, but as soon as the webinar is over, go to office.com. You'll be asked to log in with your work email address and password, and you get to your own personalized Office 365 landing page. I've got all the apps right here. Stuff I've been doing recently, people I've been working with, this little recommended section. Doesn't matter where it lives, it's just right here for you. Recent documents, right here. 1 hour ago, I was working on this sales invoice. Anything I've pinned, that means I want it to be at the top of Word. The next time I open Word and I go to my recent files, pinned would be here. I have an Excel file. I have OneDrive. This is a recent folder I've been in my OneDrive. But I can also click OneDrive right here to get to the web. Actually, no, that's the admin portal. I'll just open it here. OneDrive for Business on the web. So I have some folders and I have documents. I'll be honest with you. I started out organizing my personal OneDrive with folders. I still do some things that way, but search is so good. It's like I almost don't need the folders. As long as I'm smart in how I name my content in my OneDrive, yeah, I'm fine. In fact, since I sync to my desktop, I search here. Ooh, I can't do that. There it is. I search down here to find my content. I don't really know what folder it's in because I just look for the document. So, but inside information.
Smart tip.
I mean, search is amazing. So from here, this audit of small business sales, I have a share button. If I click on this ellipses that's going the wrong way, I have a share button. In fact, there was another one. This little pop-up. Look, there's a share button everywhere you go. OneDrive is asking you if you want to share this content. If I select it, I've got a share button up top. All of them do the same thing. They open this share dialog box. The default in this Contoso demo tenant is anyone with the link can edit. Let's be honest. I feel like I can be honest with you. It's really not my document, right? It's about information the company is concerned about. So we do want to be a little thoughtful, a little careful. The only time I send an anonymous link is if it's something to like a training video that I've done that it doesn't have any client or any pay group sensitive information contained in it. Because you don't know what happens if the person I send it to accidentally forwards it to the wrong person, right? We want to be a little cautious. We can click that and we get those options I had on the slide. Maybe I just want to share it with people in my company. People with existing access. Hey, Richard, here's that new updated copy of the document. Or again, specific people. Specific people can be inside of your organization or outside of your organization, as long as the company allows sharing outside of the organization from OneDrive.
Yep, that might be just, I was waiting for you to mention that because I think that might be a good point for a question that came in earlier. I just want to get clarity on it. So Jeff S. had asked, and I think this is the question. He's asking about if that could be turned off, external feature could be turned off for sharing at the tenant level. And if that is the question, I think, then yes, the answer is absolutely that can be. If you have the ability to go into the OneDrive administrative settings, there's a sharing option in there that allows you to be able to effectively just shut it off so that you can only share with people inside your organization. So,
Yep.
and there's even some additional advanced settings if you wanted to still allow for external sharing, that you can tweak and so forth. So you could, say maybe I do want to allow external sharing, but it's gonna only allow me if I have set up certain allow or block for certain domains or things like that. Similarly, there's some settings that allow you to say, I can do external sharing, but that user can only actually access it from the actual email account that I sent the invite to. They can't send it from, if I sent it to one email address and then they want to try to access it with an account from a different email, you can set things up like that. So there's a number of different options you can choose from for setting that up.
And we will be jumping over to the admin portal in just a couple of minutes, and we'll look at those options. Yeah, let's just get this party started.
I just like stealing some of your thunder from you, it's all.
Go for it. I got plenty to share. Okay, so do I want to allow these specific people to edit what I'm going to share with them? Maybe, maybe not. I can turn off allow editing. I can even block downloads. You can look at it, but it's not yours. You can't keep it, right? You have options. I think it is nice. Back when this first rolled out, some of these new features, there really wasn't a line around this, and it did not look clickable at all. So it wasn't super obvious you could click on this and change it. No, you can. Notice anyone with the link, I can set an expiration date. I can set a password. If I don't want them to edit, I can also not allow them to download. So even with anonymous, I can still put some controls around it. We can, as Stephanie Donahue likes to say, we can still fence in the backyard. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's worth noting too, I closed it too fast. So let's say I go ahead, go through that, and I've set it up the way I want to. You can just type your little message here. Hey, Richard, here's that document, yada, 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 thanks, and send. Or you can copy the link. Now, I will say this applies to SharePoint as well as OneDrive. The link that comes in here, let me copy it. And let me convince my taskbar to show up. And I'm going to open Notepad because that's one of my favorite tools in the whole wide world. That link that comes through, look at that. It's crazy. We used to just rail against ugly URLs. Now they're everywhere. This is the security encryption. That's why the URLs are so funky and crazy these days when we share, because the security is embedded in that link. So if I copy that link, I can go now paste that in an email if I want it to come from my inbox with my signature and look just a little bit more formal or professional. Okay. So I just felt that was worth saying. So we can see here, technically I'm Megan today, apparently. I'm using her persona in this demo. We can see some of this content is private. It's not been shared with anyone. Some of it has been shared. If I click on that share, I can just right up here at the top, stop sharing. But I can also take a look and see who all has access to it. What can they do? They can view. Maybe I'm tired of Alex having access. He's asking too many questions, or maybe he's rotated off and this doesn't concern him anymore. I can stop sharing with Alex. Your content, then the confines of your role at your company, you can manage it. So let's talk about those access settings from the tenant level. So I've cheated. I've already got the OneDrive Admin Center open. It's a simple admin center. Hallelujah, right? Sharing. You're going to notice there's SharePoint in here too. OneDrive is basically baby SharePoint. They're very interrelated. But here are my default options. Shareable link by default is anyone, a little bit of safety never hurt. Maybe we rotate that to internal, because not of our users are click happy and they don't understand they can click that button and change from anyone to only people in the organization. I can even go here to advanced settings and I can say has to be an expiration, or when someone is sharing a file, the default is view, edit, and upload. I could change it to view, right? I've got options here to start to put first level of security around it. At the moment, this is the default setting for the tenant. SharePoint and OneDrive are equal. Let's talk about that. Because I came out of the government side of the world. I can tend to err towards paranoia. I don't know that we necessarily want SharePoint content to be such that it can be shared anonymously. It makes me kind of tense up a little bit. So you could come here. Notice OneDrive moved with it. Now in the OneDrive portal, I can do something about that. If you're in SharePoint, you will see these same two slider bars and you're stuck with it. But if you come to OneDrive, you can move it back up to anyone. So now I'm saying SharePoint content can be shared with new and existing external users, people we've created accounts for, we've blessed them being here. OneDrive will allow our users to be a little bit more permissive. Or maybe not. Maybe like, nope, 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 nope. Until we go and we set up the appropriate domains that users can share with, anyone just can't happen. So you can ratchet that down.
And Joy, we have a question. Can you see who has seen the document and or won in OneDrive?
In OneDrive, you can. The easiest thing to do from OneDrive as a user is to see who has access to it from here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way for you individually to see who accessed content or when. As Joy mentioned, you can always run, there's a way to run what's called a sharing report too, by the way, which effectively allows you to, in one Excel spreadsheet, just traverse across the entirety of your, and I wasn't sure if you were going to show that or not, Joy, but it's basically in the browser where you are. If you go up to the gear in the top right two away, yep, and then choose, oh, sorry, you got to get back into the normal OneDrive view.
In the wrong one.
Yeah, in the normal OneDrive view. So from the normal OneDrive view, when you're here, you go up to that gear and.
Drum roll, please.
Yep, nice long, slow drum roll.
SharePoint systematic.
There you go. And under OneDrive settings, there's an option in there now. And I don't know if it's always been there or if it's somewhat recent. I have to go look and see when they included that. But you have this ability to be able to run what's called a sharing report. When you do that, it's basically going to it's going to create a folder in your OneDrive that is called sharing report. And it just creates a CSV for that effectively allows you to see, again, in one big view, who are all those users, what are the edit rights and so forth that they have, permissions to files inside of your OneDrive. That's interesting.
Maybe we need to. Here we go.
Oh, run sharing report. Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna learn something new today.
Yeah. Other than that, I think maybe you could, you might have to get, if you're unless you're one of the SharePoint admins or you get with the SharePoint admins to be able to run some of the reporting against it, there might be something in the auditing. Almost certainly in the Microsoft 365 analytics would probably be able to do that. Yeah, but that's a good question. You need to look into that one some more.
All right, I'm going to keep going and just keep in mind again from the tenant perspective, you've got some power here. Now, I could even come and say only people in the organization can view OneDrive. It seems an odd use of OneDrive for me, but I'm coming at it from the perspective of SharePoint's where we put our internal data documentation. OneDrive is a little more user focused. Maybe I, as a individual user with PateGroup, have the need to share documentation out with clients, not letting them into our SharePoint, right? Because we've got other client stuff there. So I'm going to trust my users to be able to share, and we actually do. We trust our teammates at PageGroup to be able to use the anonymous. That said, the longest an anonymous link can exist out in the wild is 30 days. After that, we have it set to expire. And as a user, I can't change that. I could make it 5 days instead of 30, but I can't push it out past 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have advanced settings. Allow or block sharing with people on specific domains, right? So I could come in here and say, okay, we're going to let them share except for, you know, I can't think of a domain to pick on to say no, you know, acme.com or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Let users share items they don't own. External users must accept sharing invitations using the same account the invitations were sent to. That's what Richard was talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm going to send this to Joy, but she can't forward it to her Outlook.com email address, right? It's got to stay within the confines of where I sent it.
Yeah.
So that's all the goodness from this perspective. So I'm going to hop back over into, not that, into OneDrive here. All right, so OneDrive content, I mean, let's be honest, this kind of starts to turn into that personal folder structure that we used to build out on file shares, or maybe some of us still have my folder on the file share. It's kind of the goal here is to put this back in the user's hands, maybe free up some space on that file share. One thing I see happening quite a lot is people get into OneDrive, and maybe just because it's a little bit more of a simple view, they start orchestrating everything from OneDrive. So maybe the CE annual report has been shared with my whole team. So now you have a team using a sharing link to come work on this document. That's a little fragile because, get my URL, my.sharepoint.com/personal/Megan B. Blah, 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 blah. This is Megan's OneDrive. If Megan wins the lottery and decides to retire to Tahiti next month, unless someone else takes over the ownership of this OneDrive, the content could be gone, right? So it's not really appropriate for our teams to be working out of here. This CE annual report, if it's time to start sharing with the team, we got it started and it's ready for everyone to have access to it, then it's time up here on my toolbar to move it. Now I want to sing that song from that one cartoon movie, but I'm not going to do that.
So love it. We actually have a question. I was leading up to that.
Okay.
What happens if you share, if your OneDrive shares externally and the employee leaves? What are the best practices? You may want to allow his or her documents shared internally to continue to be shared until you can sort through them, but not those shared externally. Yeah.
Well, I would say it would be fine for it to be shared externally to be. So really what most organizations do is they reassign ownership of the OneDrive to the individual's manager, which brings us to the point, if you don't want people at work to know something, don't put it in your OneDrive. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, it's not uncommon. I'm building a house right now. I've got my house plans in the OneDrive just because that's where I put them and it's super easy to get to it on my phone. Okay. But if you have a rant letter that you've been working on and that's just the way you vent your frustration, don't put it in your OneDrive because your boss might see it one day. So I would recommend having the governance in place that if employee rotates off, they offboard. One of the things IT is responsible for is reassigning the ownership of OneDrive to the manager. Kind of like how you take over an inbox of somebody when they go. So for this example, what I'm going to do is we've been working on this CE annual report. Maybe Richard and I were working on it. Now it's time to share it with the whole team. It's ready for, I like to call it prime time. And I've got two options. I even have a slide for this, so I guess I'll show it. When the document's ready for prime time, we can move it or copy it to the appropriate SharePoint library. And it's okay if that's connected to Teams, right? Because if it's connected to Teams, we find the team site, we find the document library, and we put it in the appropriate folder. That puts it in the Files tab in Teams because it's an onion, right? Layers and layers. If I move it, which the joy of SharePoint personal opinion is move it, don't copy it. If I move it, I'm picking it up out of OneDrive and I'm placing it in the library that I select. If I copy it, I'm duplicating it and putting a duplication of it in the library in the SharePoint site that I choose. Now it's in two places. What happens if I fall back on old habits and I go to OneDrive and I update the copy in OneDrive? That means the one in SharePoint's not up to date anymore. It's wrong. Right? So try to move it if you can. Break the habit of going to your OneDrive. Move it into the appropriate SharePoint location. So that said, let's do it. All right, so I've got it selected. I click move. They're not in alphabetical order. Anyone from Microsoft on the webinar, could you maybe put a word in to have these alphabetized, maybe? I mean, I could browse sites, but all that's going to do is give me even more to scroll through.
Yeah.
It's not amazing.
Advertising, so, you know.
I do. It just makes sense. All right. So I said I want to go to Sales and Marketing. Sales and Marketing has three libraries. One's called Documents. One's called Reports. If I click on Documents, oh, I know right away this is tied to Teams because there's General, right? Every team gets General. So I want it to be available for the team. So I'm going to put it in monthly reports. It says it's an annual report, but it makes sense to me that a report should be in something called Reports. All right. Move here. Sometimes folks see this and they think that's an error. It's not. It's just saying this is as far down in this path you can go. Move here. All right. It's moving. It's moving. It moved. I'm going to click that button. See what's happening? Isn't this kind of crazy? Oh, it didn't do what I wanted it to. Let's back it up. Here we go. Documents, monthly reports. This folder is empty. That's interesting. I'm going to cheat. Are we okay if we cheat? I'm going to go to SharePoint because I want to show you it really worked. Sales and Marketing. Can you hear my dog snoring in the background, Richard?
It's ever so subtle though, so.
If you follow me on social media, you know I will probably post a picture of him after this webinar. Okay. He thinks I goofed when I clicked the button. Oh no, there it is. Right there. I don't know why it's still, oh, because it said May 1 in there. It won't update the date because moving it doesn't modify it. So, fun fact, it will, if your columns match in the originating library and your receiving library, the metadata moves right with it.
Yes.
So you maintain your versioning and your timestamps.
Yep, which is a good thing, definitely.
That's a very good thing. So the move works. Now it's in Teams, which is really SharePoint. It's in SharePoint. It's where it needs to be for the whole team to start working on it. And now, yes, I'm looking at my phone. So I want to show, I'm getting ready to show you something really cool. Before I do that, I'm going to show you Sync. Do you sync your OneDrive to your desktop, Richard?
Absolutely.
All right. OneDrive has an awesome button. Every SharePoint library has this awesome button right here at the top that says Sync. When you click that, it's going to open a little tool called OneDrive Sync. Even if you do it from a SharePoint library, there's a OneDrive Sync client that will kick off a sync. And when that happens, after it runs, this awesome thing comes over. If I could get the window to move with me. Check this out. AI Hero, AI Hero. Contoso Electronics, Contoso Electronics. I have an exact synchronized copy of OneDrive that's available from my desktop. So now when I come in and I'm working on documents, this is where do you want to save it? I just click the little button, it gives me my OneDrive folders, and I say I want to throw it in images, or I want to throw it in this hero folder. This becomes my working area now for all intents and purposes. If you're ever needing to upload an image because you're updating your SharePoint homepage, you can browse to OneDrive, or you can say upload and get to your folders this way, which is typically what I do. So here's my real work one, and this is my Contoso demo. It's fantastic. And the whole thing where I control how I work, I want it to always be on my desktop or live offline, happens right here. So I could select this pattern template, right click, and say always keep on this device. That's what the green check mark here is going to mean. Always on this device. The cloud means I have to have the internet connection to get to it, to bring it down, to work on it, and have access to latest and greatest.
And Joy, you ready for some? Oh, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, I was just about to
Yes.
ask.
We have a bunch of questions, right?
Exact same moment.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the shared link doesn't move. Does the shared link move as well?
Okay, so if I had it shared in OneDrive, but then I move it, that link will break. And you see me hesitating because I'm going to go check that out just to make sure nothing has changed. Things change all the time.
Yeah, and that's assuming you're moving it out of OneDrive to SharePoint.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the context of the question.
Yes, because there's also another question. If the document gets moved from OneDrive and it was shared, does the sharing in the destination control, or does it allow the OneDrive permissions?
So it is going to, I'm going to test that and follow up with you, because in the olden days it broke. So
Yeah.
Stacy, help me keep track of that person, or I can tweet it out.
You could tweet it
I
out.
wanna make
I would
sure.
tweet. Yeah, let's tweet that one out, 'cause that one we'll follow up with Matthew, but the other person was anonymous.
Okay, perfect.
So,
Let's do that. 'Cause
yes.
I want to say now that that URL is not digging down to that specific location, I could believe they've perfected it where it would move with it, but I could also believe it hasn't. So let's tweet sharing. Got it.
And so then somebody was asking about auto-saving all documents to OneDrive.
Auto saving all documents to OneDrive. Documents to OneDrive. I don't. Richard, feel free to jump in if I am about to say something wrong, but I don't think there's a way to auto save everything to OneDrive.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple of things come to mind. I agree with you. I think a couple of things come to mind. One, that's absolutely what that backup, using the backup feature in OneDrive on Windows is for, for users that are just accustomed to putting files in their desktop or in the documents folder, or obviously they've got files in their pictures folder, to effectively allow them to not have to change anything about their workflow And then that way, all of their files then just automatically, in that case, will get synchronized up into OneDrive and backed up so that they can access them from multiple devices and so forth. But if the context of the question is more around, creating a new Office document or something like that, and then having the default automatically save it into OneDrive, I'm not as familiar on the configuration side on that. It seems like you might be able to, from the desktop tools, that is the desktop apps, seems like you might be able to have the default to where it's going to their OneDrive as opposed to some other location, like just on their desktop, or rather on their C drive. But again, I'm not as familiar with that, so I have to look into it to see. But that is a good one. That's a good question.
An observation was that if you hover over the three dots, the horizontal ellipsis on a document, you can see who has seen the document and when.
There we go.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. There's going to be, on a file by file, even folder by folder basis, there's going to be activity, yeah, that shows. Yeah. So it would show, well, I know that it shows at least, when somebody edited the file. I'm wondering if it shows that they viewed it or not. I don't have a good place to go and kind of look and see. I just have to check somewhere on that. But yeah, but that's a good point. To be able to see in this information panel, looking at activity. Good one, thank you.
And then last one is concern about multiple people having access to a OneDrive file and one person goes offline. Like there's not a really good system for co-authoring when one person goes offline. And do you have any best practices for that? Or is there any workaround?
It's really just up to the one that chooses to sync it offline to make sure if they've made changes and their computer's offline, that they sync through those changes the next time they hook back up. Let me look at something real quick.
Yeah, I think I certainly understand the challenge with that question, because each of the different desktop apps, or each of the different apps, whether it's Word or PowerPoint or Excel, they handle the conflict resolution a little bit differently. And so, in that example, if you hopped on a plane and the plane had no Wi-Fi and you were doing some editing on a document, let's say a Word document, but then someone else, while you're on the plane, is also editing that exact same document in your OneDrive, and maybe they're editing the same content, right? The same paragraph, the same words that you're making changes to or deleting and so forth. When you get back online, and OneDrive is then going to see that, hey, there have been changes made, and you also have made changes while you were all offline, that reconciliation, that it can vary, I guess I would say. Yeah, in my experience.
Right, in my experience, I've seen it a number of different ways where I could see my edits and somebody else's edits. It depends upon, like, are you tracking edits? Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. So that was a good that was good input. I think this anonymous person here, thank you, was basically just saying that the takeaway is just, be cautious, be aware when you're co-authoring docs. There's some nuances there to pay attention to if you're dealing with, trying to reconcile changes and so forth.
And the sync client you can say merge changes or discard, or you can open up both and kind of compare and see what you want to keep. Sometimes I trip over my own self and I made changes here and not here. And it's like, what do you want to do, lady?
Yeah.
And you have to kind of work through that.
All right. It happens.
The last thing I want to show is mobile OneDrive. It is the bomb.com. This is the app icon here. I am on an iPhone, so don't hold that against me, Android people. So when I open it up, again, it's an exact synchronized copy of what's on the web or what I've synced to my desktop. Even here, I have the option with this ellipsis make available offline. So I can come here, make this available offline. So again, and I actually do this, or I will do this again once we can travel when I'm going to a conference. I'll have my presentation slides and I'll just sit on my phone and scroll through them. That's my prep, you know, before I'm speaking or something. Doesn't matter if I have Wi-Fi or not, I can get to them right here. So it really, I'm sitting here scrolling with my mouse, but it really is a great feature. And with the, let's see how seamless this moves with the functionality of the app. By the way, if you don't have the Office app, go get it. It's really cool. I want to see if my phone can reconcile this new account I just added. So I can view it here. I'm still in OneDrive, but if I wanted to come up and actually open this in Word and do stuff to it, I've got that option here. Or I can just consume it from the OneDrive app. And the last thing I want to show about the OneDrive app, travel, got to keep your receipts, right? I can come in, use this little button right here, opens up the camera. It's like Inception, right? Take a picture of that, done, and it's going to ask me where I want to save it. So it's really fantastic. A lot of good thought on the Microsoft side of the world has gone in here. Give this a real name. Great tools. If it's not something you've added to your mobile tool belt, I do highly, highly recommend it. And that said, I'm going to attempt to find. We've got a couple more minutes, so do feel free to ask us some questions. Before I go to the closing slide, where does it fit, right? There can be a lot of confusion out there because SharePoint kind of feels like OneDrive, that kind of feels like SharePoint, and then Teams kind of feels like SharePoint. Yeah. What's what, right? Me, myself, and I use OneDrive. I need to add something else in here. I chat, right? I send emails. Those are the things that I as an individual do. But we also chat in teams, our teams, right? We collaborate on documents. We use our SharePoint team sites. Those are things that we do together in these apps. Then us as the organization, we can broadcast more global announcements, news, and information with Yammer or our org-wide team. And we share our company public information on SharePoint communication sites. So there's a niche for each one of those tools. There absolutely is some overlap. All right. You can't always say in black and white, if you are sharing a document, you must put it in OneDrive. Right? Maybe that goes in our team. Maybe it goes on a communication site. Maybe it's going outside of the organization. We're not ready for external sharing, so we're going to email that out. Right? It's all about the governance and how that plays out. But, woo! All that said, thank you so much for being here. I hope this has helped. I hope this has given you some information on what you can do with OneDrive, how it can kind of help, you know, with your business work streams and kind of getting content from me, myself, and I to we as a team. We've got our contact info in here. If there were questions we didn't get to, we will be tweeting out the answer to that share link. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. We've got our email addresses. We've got our LinkedIn QR codes. And don't miss next Tuesday. We're going to do a deep dive on forms.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome.
Good deal. Well, again, yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. That hour just flies by when you're having this much fun.
Okay. It does.
Huh? All right. And yeah, don't miss out too. I'll be tweeting another picture of my snoring dog. So you can...
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.